Quick point at the start. While you sat at your tables, you can take your masks off. As soon as you didn't want to move around, unfortunately we do need masks on for the COVID regulations. Mr. Moore can't make it tonight. I was chair prior to Mr. Moore taking over, so I'll do the first little bit of the meeting. So straight into it then. First one to elect the chairman. Have we got any proposals?
Seconded.
Any other proposals?
I propose Carl Thornton.
Okay, second it.
You going to second it?
Yeah. See you with me. Are you doing minutes tonight, okay?
I will do, but you have to bear with me because I'm not a short-term person. So I'll try and put as much as I can down, but yeah.
Scribble that down, mate, it needs a minute.
So Rob,
Proposal self. Second by Councillor Bell.
hold on a second. Do you know I forgot your name? Hold on. And Truly. Second by Alan. David.
David, yeah.
Sorry, Dave, I always call you Alan. Okay.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, we'll put it in the vote, then please.
Oh, okay, no, it's all right. I just wanted to mention some. Can I just mention something quickly? You know, we've had these meetings before, and I think these are more informal than normal meetings. And I think we ought to be able to engage the public as well. I think Rob started this a long time ago. Do you remember, Rob, when we started in Pavilion? I just think, these people turn up, and it's just an idea. I'm not saying you do it, but I just think it's an idea that, seeing as though I've been turned up, I think maybe they should have a shout as well. It's just opinion. It's up to everybody.
You're not elected, that's the problem.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean,
we made a point of putting a cap on the committee.
Yeah, I know.
If we were going to throw it up to everybody, we didn't need a cap, we could invite everybody on.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no worries. In that case, votes myself first then. I make that 2. Votes Mr. Torff. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Mr. Torff. Come and take a seat, please. Chairman, it's the front.
All right, I think you will be on the telly.
I'm a bit surprised. I didn't know that was coming tonight, to be fair, but it is and I am. So, first thing, thank you for voting me on. The second thing is, I want to make it quite clear that this committee is to further forward the build of the new pavilion, proposed new pavilion, community centre, memorial hall, we've got lots of different names. The memorial hall, that's what I was thinking of that. So it is to further that. I don't go on the back of that. I don't think we should go back on any others' work that lots of people have done over the last 6-7 years. I think that's set in stone. I don't think there's any need for that. The parish parishioners have paid for this, which was lucky enough to get 12 grand to start our work in part which was great. They spent probably half of that on bits and pieces, getting the surveys done and getting the planning commission in place, which was good. A lot of hard work done in that, and a lot of money as well. So I don't think we have to visit that anymore. It is what it is, and we carry on.
Sorry, apologies. I just say, we have an agenda. Very nice to hear from you, Chair. We have an agenda to stick to, and we stick to the agenda. And secondly, I think you'll find that information is a little bit in terms of arrogant. We have got a situation where the building isn't fit for purpose, as we're going to talk about, not looking back, going forward. In order to go forward, you need to look at the mistakes of the past.
Okay, let's carry on with the agenda.
Oh, so you can speak.
I'm just saying thank you to everybody.
Right, okay.
So thank you. apologies of absence?
Dick Moe told me he couldn't make it tonight. I don't know about anybody else.
Okay. Number 3 on the agenda is to receive declarations of interest in any items on the agenda or any application for dispensation.
I believe that would be yourself, the vested interest in the football.
Sorry?
I believe that would be yourself, to declare, as a member of the football, as chairman of the football.
I don't see it is.
No?
Excuse me? Sorry. That would be the most natural thing to do.
What's that?
Accept matters of an interest.
Yeah, there's an interest, because there's a working interest that we want the football club to have that facility. So that's proactive, that's working with it. So if we want to talk about having interest, then you need to declare an interest as well, because you've been anti the village hall since we've got. So are you going to declare an interest?
Not something at all.
Of course it is.
No.
Okay.
I have an opinion. I have an opinion. You have a position.
Okay, thank you.
But
So
there's
have you got any,
interest.
have you got any agenda on the dispensation office, what we're doing tonight, or, and the whole thing?
It's clearly on rules.
Do you?
Can I just one sec, please? I was just looking at it, and it says to receive declarations of interest on items on the agenda.
Yeah.
So if you look at the items on the agenda, I don't think either come under that. I'm guessing, if that's how I read it.
In this scenario, I would agree in that context.
You might be technically correct.
That's what I believe anyway.
Thanks, Chris. Everybody? To approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of March 21 as a true record. It was on Zoom, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Zoom.
It's, I mean, I don't think there's anything missing, but it looks pretty good to me. There's the votes there and everything else. I think it's right, personally. Yeah.
Can we propose that on the true record? Kevin and David? Thank you.
Just one sec, sorry, I missed it.
Before we move on to item 5, Chair, have we had written resignation from Mr. Thornall? Have we had it to this committee? Mr. Thornall. So at the moment we've got a count of 12 councillors or 12 people on this committee. We've currently got 13. We would need the resignation letter on file.
I think we've already done it.
I think at the, if you remember, Steve, at the normal parish council meeting, I think Ray read his letter, so the parish council took that as, that's how Alan got on. So I believe that the parish council took that as
That was a lengthy letter. It wasn't a letter of resignation. We just need to swear some legal
So if that was the resignation, then how come Mr. Bell's on it?
because it's council. The
No, but how
annual
it was a
parish council meeting. You
Yeah,
all know.
was there a space?
So you're now coming on to my next point.
yeah.
At the annual parish council meeting, all the councils have voted on to all the committees. I've clarified it with now, and that'll say that let me read it to you.
Just going back to that, Steve, if you remember the parish council meeting, I might myself, I'm not 100% certain, but when it was said that Ray had given up his position, somebody did say, then that leaves an opportunity for Alan to come on. I believe I'm right.
It was March, because at that meeting, you had a minimum of 5 councillors voted on to it, and however many councillors above that got voted on would then leave spaces for the parishioners to join.
Did you resign, Ray?
But I can't just stick to the words that I actually said.
Yeah.
I can't truthfully say the exact words that I said.
I just mentioned Ray, right?
Yeah.
The only reason we've got Alan on is because you resigned, because I think there was a process where everyone was saying, I don't know what it was, somebody says, well, if there is a position, because Alan did want to go on, if I'm right, and then once that position got freed, someone said, well, that gives the position to Alan, and everybody agreed on that.
I don't understand the relationship between those two things at all.
Because there wasn't a position, there was 12 people on.
It's irrelevant, Chair, because in the High Council meeting, you vote when the council wants to it, as wants to be on to it. That then leaves explains their position for the committee.
Yeah.
What we should do tonight, and I'm going to say something, what we should do tonight is then look at the spare places and re-vote the commissioners onto it. A guidance from now is vote taken at the first meeting of the new committee for those new members. We missed off the agenda. I did ask the clerk if we could do that. What I propose tonight, because you guys have turned up and you're expecting to be on,
It's on the agenda, Steve.
it's
Okay, we can't discuss
it's
this.
a point of order that we need to sort out.
No, we can't discuss it.
Can I finish then, Chair?
Can we
So
move
what I
on to
propose
the-
tonight,
we'll go on to
what I propose
item-
tonight
we'll
is
go on to item
we let
five.
those councillors, we let those people that turned up, stay on the committee, be on tonight.
Thank you.
But the next agenda, we have to jump through the legal system.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Maybe on item five. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, I'm sorry, I didn't go back. Ray, sorry, can we have a letter of resignation on it? Because we've got 13 on at the moment, including yourself, and we need to make sure we have a maximum of 12 as per our rules.
I'll have a look and see what I've got on there. I will speak to the chair of the parish council in due course. I don't want to do anything which I shouldn't do or should do, so I feel that if I speak to Kevin, and then I'll do whatever is advised by whatever.
So basically, in terms of reference, say maximum 12 people, with yourself it gives 13.
So that's
illegal.
So that means that was
You know what I'm down on
Is that what it means?
Listen.
If we get the letter of resignation, we're sorted.
If Ray didn't put his resignation in, then there's no place for it to go, is there?
Well, we're not.
Is that right?
Let's calm down. Let's calm down.
No, what is it?
Listen. No, we can't
Changes that you want to suit for yourselves. So let's move on. Agenda 5 on the agenda is to resolve on question to be asked the dates and distribution for the village consultation. Has anybody come up with any ideas of how we want to word this and how we want to go about it? Kevin?
we all, last time we had, I believe last time we had a meeting on Zoom, I believe we all got told to go away and bring it to this meeting. So I think everybody should.
Well, we was asked to send up a dick.
Yes.
No, I didn't see that, did I?
Yeah,
It was either send it in or bring it to the next meeting.
and it was already suggested a master document was circulated by Richard Hope, and the suggestion of some questions
I haven't seen that.
I haven't seen that.
might be before your time.
I haven't seen that, honestly.
Been on the same page,
Look, from my understanding, yeah, everybody were to come back, this is how I see it, how they think best to forward, you know, for a question. Would be, when Steve was chair, we said we'd get a vote out, and now we're going to put the question of what we all think the vote's going to be. That's how I see it.
And is this going to be a democratic referendum, or is it just going to be?
Now, this is something we've got to talk about together, but I mean, I suggested it at the next meeting.
Talks about what it takes to.
Excuse me?
Talks about what it takes to. Because so far, I've said two things, and both times I've been ignored. Both times, tonight, both the chair and yourself. Two things I've said now, and the chair's got
Okay, so have you got any, well, we'll go to you first. Have you got any ideas of how we should do this?
I've just expressed it.
How we should do
The
it?
document was circulated.
But we haven't seen that, so the idea is that we're going to bring it here today, and we'll discuss it, and then you add points that we need to put in this consultation letter.
So the document was on the Facebook, we didn't get circulated on each.
No, Richard.
And not everybody's on Facebook. We had that.
Richard Holmes circulated the document.
Well, I found it here.
I'm literally
I
saying
have
it's
no
going
correspondence.
So if you haven't got
Have you got that?
that's not, I'm actually looking for it. That's what I'm doing, so you carry on.
Okay, well, I
Right, so allow me to start.
Yeah.
First thing we need to do is we need to ask the village if they want it, yes or no. Pretty simple. However, to do that, how
Yeah.
last week,
Yeah. So wanted,
so,
yeah.
yes or no, but we need to put them in an informed position where they know what they're voting for.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
So,
No lies, facts.
so at the moment, the business case is woefully outdated. So the first thing we need to do,
Can I just jump in there for the bit on you saying about the business, so that is a ongoing live document. It can be updated at any time, as you well know, on business things, that can be done. So because we've been in COVID and nothing's been done for that for 2 years.
Mr.
I don't
Chairman,
think this
if
is
you ask them to go about it, you let people finish speaking.
Yeah, I'm just explaining to you.
You've just made the point I was about to make by jumping in and cutting me off. So business case at the moment is woefully outdated. I believe the first thing we need to do is get that up to speed so we can get all the facts out to the village so they understand what they're voting on.
I agree.
Go back.
That's a main thing for me.
Yeah. Has anybody else got anything?
Yes. It is probably public knowledge that had I known that Carl Tordoff was going to be the other candidate, I probably understood. But I didn't know. And desperate there should be some other input into this toxic situation, I stood. On behalf, I hope, of common sense and fair play and trying to bring unity to the village. What it turned out to be, in the words of Alistair Webb of the Lynn News, was the election turned out to be a kind of mini referendum on the whole project. And the vote, of course, was quite conclusive, 2/3 to 1/3. Now, what I'm coming to is that really means that already, I think, the village has decided and is entitled to think that the present proposal, I think Planning Commission has actually expired, hasn't it? That present proposal is completely dead in the water. And what we have to do is to go back to square one. In my view, it needs a two-pronged thing, a two-pronged survey, two surveys, if you like. The first one, and both of these would have to go right around the village. The first one would be a very general thing, to ask all the groups and every house in the village, what do you want in the way of facilities in the village? What are you missing? What would you like to see? What are your interests? You can imagine a very generalised document, short thing, drawn up with a reply slip, voting slip, however we word it. Probably wouldn't be a voting slip, I think that's down to it. When they're in, and we have an understanding of what the village wants, that would need to be then very carefully collated to make sure that as many as possible of views were incorporated into the next stage, which is coming up with options for the village of what we would like to propose to them. So I can imagine the second document might have 2 or 3 options. If this, then that. If that, then this. We've listened to what you said, what you want. Now these are the proposals we come up with, which look as though they could meet those wishes of the village. And they would need to be approximately costed, and perhaps even some bits of design in there. In the meantime, it is obvious to me that if we're going to have a fair, level playing field, and we really are going back, scrapping everything that's gone, which I think actually you just said, Carl, scrap everything in the past, including the previous plans, we're going to really have a fresh start, then you really must take this all off the market.
So what's your question?
Well, you've got my proposal for how we proceed.
But it's what questions we've got to
Well,
ask. I don't hear a
Okay,
question.
can I
Questions are quite straightforward, aren't they?
From
sorry, Alan, but I'm just trying to write a question. Steve's put the question, I've got an idea, but you know, it might not be my idea. Steve's put an idea down on a question to ask the villagers.
Yes.
I just need to know what the question is.
Yeah, a very general question about
Just do you want...
yes, the
villagers
needs,
to,
what do you perceive, perhaps others can contribute, let's
okay.
widen it out.
So the
What do you
question...
perceive to be the needs of the village? What would you like to see? What would help you in your life? What groups perhaps might you like to see? What groups you belong to? You can see how that paragraph can be written up and, you know, a response hopefully given by as many as possible in the village.
So it's like, do you want a new memorial? Do you
Well,
want...
it would be obviously to state that the pavilion is a mess and must come down. Everybody agrees that. But what sort of a building are we going to put up to replace it? Now that will come out of what we see as the perceived needs of the village when people have responded to the first bit.
So that would be similar to the playback, wouldn't it?
Yes,
What
very
activities do you want to see?
What do
I
you
just
want to
need
see?
a question,
Yes,
Steve.
yes.
I just need a question to ask the people, and then people can vote on it. I don't know what to put down. Do you want a new memorial hall?
No, that's too late on in the process yet.
Is the perception here that we are building a building for... Sorry, is the perception here is that we are going to build something on the backbone of selling this?
Is that your question?
No, that's the question that was missing.
If we're building, this is my personal opinion, if we're
If
building a new memorial hall, yeah, then,
Well, are we?
well, that's been the plan for 15 years.
Yes, I know, but that's the whole point.
This group is set up to
No, Rob's asked me a question.
No, that's the whole point. That is the whole point.
Can I just...
The 2/3 to a third in that election, whereas a very unwilling participant. Let me finish.
No, you didn't let me finish. Please let me finish. You put it in and
Well, I thought I was speaking. Oh, carry on.
No, Rob asked me a question. I forgot the question now. What were it?
Did you have fish and chips for dinner tonight?
Oh, I don't think...
No. The question I put was, is this new building, whenever it
Yeah.
dies and it goes in,
Yes.
going to be built on the backbone of selling this building?
I would say, because it's going to be called the new memorial hall, this memorial hall, we can't do both. We couldn't build two buildings.
Well, you're not going to build the same.
Well, sorry, we couldn't keep two buildings.
Depends how much money we can get from different
That's
sides,
right.
doesn't it?
That's right. But
Right, so I
on
think
the model that we're doing at the moment, which you know about, Rob, and I believe that's when we first put the memorial up, or maybe just after, I think at the same time.
what's that? Sorry, what are you referring to now?
This
This hall,
hall was built by Patterson's for the
what I'm
Well,
saying
the question is, are you putting... Oh, can I say, can you just finish what you're about to say? 'Cause I'm interested in what you're about to say. Can you keep getting interrupted? Sorry, I do apologise.
that's written down.
Yeah, I want to hear what you're going to say, but Karen was saying something.
I personally think, that when we've gone down the road, this is going 5-6 years ago, maybe, we'd said that this needs to be sold to put towards the new one. The letter I put out at the last election, personally, I put all the facts in there, that if we did get, say, 200,000 for this, and the building, it come to 575,000, the cost at that time was 638,000. Yeah, and that's how that's how everybody saw it, because everybody was happy with that, and everybody knew that.
Can I just add to that? So when many years ago, when I was chair of the memorial board at the time, there was a big deal on that the parish council actually buying this memorial board and the land that sits on it. And they bought it for I forget how much it was, £5,000, which is fine, really, because I think the owners want that off their hands. So I think they asked for 25. I was saying we'll go for £5,000. And it was always, and I think there's minutes to say this, that this, from way back then, this memorial was always been brought by the parish council to sell or dispose of in a later date to build the new memorial.
Just need a picture and a fact there, Chair.
That is in minutes.
We are custodian trustees, and we've been back to the solicitors.
I'll tell you what it says in minutes. I don't care what you have to say about what this is, because I don't have to see that. But what I'm telling you now is that is in the minutes, that this was brought at that time to sell for a new.
As an asset.
Where
As an asset.
That would be whether that be today, tomorrow, next year, or
As an asset.
asset.
But
As an asset.
I don't know that. I
So,
don't know the answer.
So the parish council bought the memorial hall as an asset with the pretense that we were going to sell it in the future.
I find that incredible.
Is that what you're saying?
That's my belief, is that the parish council bought this memorial to sell on in the future when and as it needed.
Would it be surprising to learn that the parish council bought the building from Richard Brown for the £5,000? Richard Brown bought the memorial hall. Richard Brown bought it, and a transaction took place to take it off his hands because he couldn't see it going to the developer on the proviso that it was the parish council.
Never bought this.
I've seen the letter.
I've got a factual.
Richard Brown was the chairman of the parish council at that time, and the parish council paid for that.
Richard Brown applied for it, and then the parish council bought it off Richard Brown.
Okay, so the parish
On the proviso that the Clenchwarton Parish Council were custodians of it because it belongs to the
It's still going to carry on like every parish council meeting. So, so far last year, where it just results in arguments and
no one's arguing. A statement was made. A statement was made, and when I went to the statement, no one's arguing. A statement was made. No one's arguing. A statement was made, and I'm just trusting up as a statement.
I'm telling you that is that I was the chairman of the board then. We had meetings with Richard Brown, I had meetings with ETX Mayor, Paul Brandon, and there was some other fellow, I can't think of his name. We all sat around and this meeting went on, and I know that this parish council, in my best knowledge, brought this memorial hall for the future of this village.
As the custodians of it.
So the question is, item 5 is,
Chairman,
I have got ideas of what you want, so you have your say.
That's what I was saying.
I have Richard Brown's statement here. There is no linking of the parish council buying this hall with a view to selling it to build a new one.
Who have the deeds?
There is no linkage of that.
Who's got the deeds?
The parish council hold the deeds.
I've got Richard Brown's statement here. Why did you
It's
say
not
that?
actually, I think that's for another day. I mean, we're
Well,
into some.
Can I agree with that? So can I, we've gone full circle there. Can we have that's what you were saying?
I just want to, I forgot what Alan's question was. Can you just tell me?
Was it my question or Alan's?
I thought,
There was
no, I thought we finished. I don't know.
Are we finished?
I just want to ask, Alan, I'm trying to put a question down to the village, yeah?
I haven't got a direct question.
You haven't got a direct
I'm
question?
proposing a two-part investigation of what the village wants and how the village will choose from the options.
Can I just
What's
put down-
concerning me, what is concerning me, is using the
Red car? Red car? Whereabouts? Oh, Jenny, that's your car, I think. Is it brown or red?
right. Yeah, we're now.
Just come in now. Sorry about that.
I just want to leave that.
what's concerning me is the assumption that seems to be around in some of your heads tonight, that we are simply going ahead building a new memorial hall. Now, if you have respect for the democratic process, and it's just how it happened, I didn't set it up like this, but the democratic process has rejected the plans that were put forward that have now, I understand, run out of planning permission anyway. We need to go back absolutely to square one, and in order to have a level playing field for all options, including retaining this hall must come off the market.
No, nobody's rejected anything. I just want to.
Can we have the question, please?
Right, so Chair, there's so much confusion.
There's no confusion.
The people sat on here have all got different views.
Yeah. So the
If
question
we
is-
have got different views,
So who's running this thing?
if we've got different views, then the parish are even
So-
more confused.
What's your question?
I've just said to you, I said to Kenny, the answer, you shouldn't.
What I put down, Alan, what I put down is to take a two-part investigation.
Yeah,
I'm not just going to, because at the end of the day we're voting on this.
Yeah.
So I've just put down two-part
You
investigation. Is that all right?
could put a survey of needs and requirements of the village and then a presentation of
I'll put
options,
survey.
how they could be met.
I'll put
Two-part survey.
Yeah.
You would vote on the second one, not the first.
Chair, I've got Mr Moore's report here, and in that, he's got a lot of questions that he suggests. Do you want me to read through these?
Is that the same?
Steve, do you
Well, we're going to go around, everybody might have different proposals to what's on there. So the idea of today's meeting is to get ideas across, and we're not going to make lost that. So who wants to talk next, what they want?
Do you want me to finish this off? We've got all these.
Say again, sorry?
Would you like me to finish this off? And then we've got all of these questions.
Finish what?
This is Mr Moore's independent
I've
review.
got these questions.
Okay,
Yeah.
next questions.
Yes.
If you were, Steve, can I have that after that? Can I have that afterwards? 'Cause-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, we're going to go nowhere. We're going to actually go out.
If you go to the minutes, you go to the minutes, but it's not here to be had. It's not fair to someone else should have to be had. So, who's next? Do you want to say anything, Kevin? Do you want to do this also? David?
Well, I've set mine to dick one, I forget what I put there,
So,
and I can't get that on it because I'm not connected. But I was asking questions like, do you, or would you like a village hall? Would you like a new pavilion with a small hall attached? And four like that.
Yeah.
So they're just basic questions, so we can get an idea.
I've got put, do you want Paul in your, what else was it?
Well, I can't remember the word, but that was like, would you like to see a new pavilion with
Yeah.
showers and whatever, and it was just a
So
small.
Do you want village hall and what do you want put in it? What do you want in it? Yeah? What?
Yeah, well, that'd be the pavilion, not a hall as such. I can text you when I'm.
Yeah.
Can I just quickly ask a question? Why did you send those questions to Richard?
Well, because he asked for it, honestly.
At the time when you sent out this document, which I've got here.
Yeah, it's my question, I don't know.
What day was that, Rob?
What was the date?
Yeah.
The date was the 5th of the 10th, 2020. Was that before the time of this new file committee?
No, I'm thinking that's from my old email address.
Oh, yeah, okay, fair enough.
That was said that way before.
Well, I did come at that point.
No, that was said that
I know we sent it out.
last October.
This is the question.
The question was asked in March.
This is the question.
That's a real one.
No.
The question was asked in March again. So that's what we're trying to say. I'm trying to tell you that we never had, or I personally didn't have the emails from Hidmo when all the members were elected on in March of that proposal. I didn't have that.
Chair, are you interested in capturing all the
Oh, you
questions?
literally, exactly.
Nobody else had that.
Are you interested in capturing all the questions, Chair?
No, because we have a new question.
You're not interested in capturing the
No,
questions?
we have a new question because this is a new committee from that date. This is a new committee. So the new committee is here tonight and is to run through agenda 5 on there and to come up with ideas that the way forward for this question here. And that's it. So anybody else?
Can I just add, well, I have ordered a new register of voters, register of voters, so we can get everybody's name up to date, where they live and whatever. If we're sending, take it out.
Have you got any questions you want to put to all the
Well, I think there would be, if you can have groups, like the ladies for the aerobics and things through the day, when they've got the children at school and that, so a lot of people have been interested in that sort of thing, in book clubs.
So your question would be?
Would people like things like a book club, a writers group,
To go into the
afternoon,
Noon Memorial.
yeah, or mornings.
Yeah. So,
I think just with putting here, yes or no, in the comments box for a starter, you know, just, you know, at least you know yes or no rather than, you know, complicate it. Because I think what you want in it, I mean, the hall that we've planned, in, you know, the previous CCP committees, pretty much covered everything apart from, was it badminton, that it doesn't cover because of the height, is that okay? Exactly, but I think it was a multifunctional hall.
So when I'm saying your question is
Simple yes or
yes
no,
or no
and a
to
comment.
the new memorial.
You know, and obviously we've got to send the sheets like Vic said, you know, with all you know, all the information on with it. So it's not just do you want it yes or no, it's kind of you read the information and then make your decision yes or no.
thank you.
I'd like to put a question forward. For a minute.
Can I say no?
Do
Mine's
you
the
yours?
same, yes,
Yeah.
mine's the same as Sophie's. It's do we want a new memorial hall?
Yes or no? Yeah.
Yes or no? Because there's, you know, to cater for people in the daytime.
Yeah.
So is that a yes or no to them? This is the answer, really. Is that a yes or no to the actual plans that we have?
Yes,
Yes.
new community centre, you know, that
Because I don't think older people, well, I don't think other people are catered for in the daytime. You know, people might want to,
only
Go to
weekends,
dance
not a
or-
weekday you can't.
you know, so plus evenings, you know, are proper facilities.
Can I ask a question, Charlie?
Yeah.
What vetting have you done to know who wants to use the A building during the day?
You go over the bus stop and there's a lot of people but would like to go to dances in the daytime.
Dances during the daytime?
Yeah, sort of like tea dances, get together, chats, things like that.
So we can probably capture that in a question. So what would you use the hall for? And then we can list a lot of activities
Yeah, but
and get people to.
you don't really need to do that at the moment, do you?
The
I don't
thing
think you
is
need to
that-
do that now. It's like, that comes later. doesn't
Yeah,
it?
but if we're going to send one survey out, we might as well capture all the uses at the same time. Otherwise we're going to end up firing another survey out saying, right, we've agreed to it, what do we actually want it for?
Well, no, because that will come when you build this lovely new hall, you know. People will come. You know, there's slimming groups advertising all over the place
Yes.
trying to get in somewhere on a weekend, you know.
So let me pick up on a point you said earlier about we can't use it for badminton. What if we were to ask the question and 98% of the village come back and say we want to play badminton? That tells us we need to rethink and build it for what the village wants showing.
Okay, so answer that question is, that question has been asked, and the answer we had, and Kevin was there as well, and I think, I can't remember, Tony from the old place, chairman, he was there, and the question was asked at the time, because the roof was a lot higher, and when we had the planning people out there to review that and give us advice on what we can have and what we can't have, she said, and it is in the report, that
Which report?
that we had to, in her report, the
Where's that report? Sorry to question this, but this is the information.
Let me finish. So that was put in that report that the roof had to be lowered to get through planning for people, so they didn't see the outside of the trees and the bushes and the houses and the overlook if people went on the roof. So that was the reason that badminton got knocked on the head, and the other reason.
So where's that report?
We'll be able to find it. People need it once about it.
Right, so when Dick Bob did his review, he couldn't find that report, and despite asking, he was not given it.
It must be about, got to be, because
Right,
the lady...
so this is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I met the lady because we employed someone who does things like this all the time and gives advice. You know, that can come out and tell you what you can and can't do, what you get through a plan and what you want. And I did mention badminton, and she said you won't be able to have a kind of roof in that location on the field. That's what she said.
So we've got we've got so many questions and so many items because we haven't got that base level of understanding around these tables. If we can get that base level, we're all on the same playing field to start with, we can go forward. pessimism about because we don't know.
Yeah, the question that Sophie mentioned, I thought was a good idea, but I think you could go into more detail with that because, rightly or wrongly, how people feel about the memorial or owns it. The question could be, do you want a new memorial hall, but the old memorial hall would have to be sold to fund the new memorial hall? And then you're killing two birds with one stone. But if you did that, then you could say, as an afterthought, but we'd like to get there, what kind of things would you like to do in New Memorial? You're not asking them to do that, but what you're doing is you're getting an idea on what... This is going to be the biggest thing that we do, sending out to the people of every village. We have had numerous open days which people didn't attend, but this will go to every household in the village. So I think if we get this right, then we'll get a true reflection on what people want.
I hope you just wrote them down.
Yeah, I am.
The thing is, Kevin, people
Right, so,
Can you just leave me out for a minute?
to your second point was, do you want to sell this place for the new?
Hold on a minute.
So to your second point, so the first point you made, we've already captured yes or no. Your second point was, do you want to sell this place to fund?
So it says here, the roof has been intentionally hit in order to reduce the physical fault of the building and proposed construction materials will comprise of brick bricks and lint and piers.
So could you send that to all this company?
Everybody's had it.
Carl, we haven't, and it doesn't even say it in Mr. Moult's report, does it?
No.
Otherwise, we'd all understand that. Could you be kind enough to send that to this
Peter
attorney?
Motes had it, so anyway, I will send it when I get time.
Thank you very much.
Can I just go back on what I just said then? So what I think I said is, yes or no, sorry. Do you want to sell,
So the existing memorial hall.
do you want to sell MH to fund what would, to fund the new hall, and what would you like to do in this new build? I think if you put about 5 things, and then they can do whatever they want on that, maybe. That's just an opinion.
Can I get a time scale on you sending that report? Will we get it before the next meeting?
Do you mean when that report got done?
No, if Mr. Thomas got the report, saying about height, that I've been asking for the last 2 years. Can I get it? Can I get it?
Don't lie, Steve. You haven't asked me.
You feel like
Have you asked me?
it's not lying.
Have you asked me? Have you asked me?
Yes. I've asked this committee several times.
You haven't asked me.
Yes, I have.
It was asked through, but it's not in the report, there's others.
I gave him, he's had everything off this thing here, he's had everything off that.
Right. So to get us all on that sort of base knowledge, could you send everything
I will
off?
send you when we have one.
Right, will that be before the next meeting?
When's next week?
Whenever you say, you're the chair.
So we don't have it again.
We don't.
So carry on.
So that's me then. Would anybody else have to trill in? Rob?
Sorry?
I just want to know if you've got a question for the village.
I did, but like you know,
Do you want to tell you what we've got at the moment?
I'm going to, well, again, I'm just taking this off what's in front of me.
Yeah.
If I may.
Yeah.
I think somebody's already asked me one in the village or do you want to go into facilities in the village? Is the village willing to pay for them? There's no interest.
Sorry, Rob, that second after, do you want the village hall? Just after that?
Do we want to grow the facilities in the village?
Yeah.
Is the village willing to pay for those?
Should I put contribute to that rather than pay for it? Because they won't be paying for all of it, will they?
What are we going to pay for?
Pay for it, contribute, whichever terminology you want to use.
So in the index report, it talks about how much the parishioners are going to pay for either 25 years or for 50 years, I believe it was.
That was,
But no one knows that.
several. Did you read it right to the bottom?
Of course it is.
Because right on the bottom of it, it actually said, you know, if we manage to secure like nearly all of the funding, which if that is what we were aiming for, to secure like full funding, weren't we, back in the day? You know? So you might not have to pay for it for 75 years or for 50 years, you know?
So you're going down the same route I am. if you look at Marston and St James, they went out to about 30 different trusts.
Yeah, but that's a
They didn't do the same
completely
thing.
different hall and worth a bloody bomb, whereas ours isn't, you know, on such a massive scale.
Yeah, it's 150 grand less. That's it.
Well,
Anyway.
Yeah.
Chairman, I do think if you, there is a danger of confusing the survey of needs with providing people with proposals. I think there are two separate stages. You can imagine a situation that you put a leaflet round asking people, what are the needs of the village? What would you like to see it as? Imagine you had no replies at all. Then in which case you'd stay as you are. Only when you've got the needs clearly expressed, and we do need to get what those needs are, I think, can we then come up with proposals which may involve a new memorial hall, or may involve keeping this building and building a pavilion with a meeting room, with a clerk's office over the way. But to start putting options, to make the first question, do you want a new memorial hall, or whatever, is putting the proverbial cart before the horse.
Yeah.
You need a survey of needs. It need only be a month or two later that we do the other one, once we've had a chance to actually see what the needs are.
You're speaking as if this is a kind of new thing, you know, people have been trying to build a new community centre or pavilion, whatever you want to call it, for 20 years, you know? It's not like a new thing.
Well, it isn't new.
It's about 17 years.
Thank you, but it's been going on a long time.
Well, I've been here.
Yes,
Then why bother?
I know the properties.
Audrey,
11.
People get like.
can I just say,
The Memorial Hall was not proposed, the name, the Memorial Hall, was not proposed for the new building. It came up as a gesture to put the plaques and the things, because it did not become a memorial hall until the British Legion took it over.
Yeah.
But then when they ran away in the town,
Wrong.
and people had died who was in it, things had just stayed there.
Which is correct.
So it wasn't said it was going to be a new memorial.
But Audrey, can I just ask you, why didn't you say it before, when it was said?
Because the question only just came up and I
No,
couldn't get...
right at the beginning of this, it was said, we're calling this the new memorial hall.
that was voted on by the
That was
parish.
voted on, and you was amongst the group, so I don't know whether you voted it or not, but it was agreed. It might be a good gesture.
But it was
Sorry,
agreed-
just have one conversation.
Okay, let's have some order now, we're going back and forth. So,
Just one second, please. I don't think Rob's finished.
No,
well, you can carry on, there's nothing going on, so what's
you're
your
not
say?
arguing.
No, because I'm now getting bollocks because I haven't,
No, you're not. No, you're not.
because I hadn't said it at the beginning of it.
No, Rob,
No, that's not what I said.
Rob, can I just go over what you said up to now? Right.
No, that's not, that wasn't the context. I didn't say that. I just asked a question. It was brought up earlier on today.
But I didn't say it, did I? Because I never thought about it then until Alan said what he was saying,
Audrey.
and then I took it up there, just to mention it.
Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you.
That's input, thank you.
Right.
Right, Rob, this is what I've got to now. Do you want a village hall? Do you want to, do you want it to grow in the village? Do you want a village hall? Do you want it to grow in the village? Do you want to contribute? Is that right?
For 25 or 50 years, was it? Something like that.
Oh, if I may, just as speaking as a councillor here, it's all good and well surveying what people want today, but this building's not going to be here for today, it's going to be here for 25, 50, 75 years. So I do agree with the Reverend on one hand, but we do have to consider this hall will be here long after we've all gone. So whether we're going to do Tiddlywink, Babington, or whatever we do today, in 50 years' time, it still has to be standing, it still has to be useful. So I do, that's just my little bit there. So I can't see why we've got to survey the needs of the people today. Because we're not so much building it for today, we've got to look at the long term, what we're building and leaving for tomorrow.
That is exactly the point which when I get there, the other question is in regards to running costs. Because there's nothing in the business plan that mentions anything to do with running costs.
consult the planning, which is sort of pretty big thing to do.
Well, that's not how it goes, though, is it? We work on behalf of the parishioners. We don't work on behalf of ourselves.
Okay.
So there's a
we
question.
consulted everybody, all the professional people that got that plan permission passed, and every one of them, to a man and woman, said that is probably the best place.
So is that on your
So
membership?
we're just behind, I don't know if you are aware of this, but just behind that memorial, the pavilion, there is the drainage, sewage drainage, so we can tap into that, keep the costs down. There's also three-phase electrics into that building, which goes in there, so we can tap into that, so we haven't got to get electric from a long way away. If we move it anywhere else there, we're doubling up, trebling up some of this services that we need to put in. So the ideal place was there. We had 4 options to where that was going to go, and I'm sick of saying it.
Well, if you've got a membership, so
We gave 4 options where that can go. One was where the trees, that meant taking them trees down. I don't think people would be too happy about that. Second one was behind where the training ground is for the football. That was the second one. We can't go there because of the drainage, and that was handed over to sports, and so some other reason she said, I can't think what it was, we couldn't go there. The other one was where everybody gets up there, the basketball area, which would double the cost for the services to get there, for the sewage and everything else. And she said that you wouldn't get it there because it'd be too big a building for that space. And the other option was where the pavilion is now, where it actually sits now. And she said no to that as well. So that is why that has been moved forward 20 metres, and it sits right where that football pitch is.
So is that in the report on your membership?
Read it.
That's what I'm asking, is that on there?
The option she gave.
So-
Am I right, Kevin, you was there?
So Chair, you know I've asked this 1,000 times. Have you got a report on the membership that says
Oh,
that?
that JTL report she gave us, I have that.
Excellent. So if we can circulate that, we can all read it before the next meeting, and we can all get that base level of knowledge.
Also, it wasn't just that lady at that meeting. I don't know if you remember, Carl.
There was something else.
No, it was surveyor. Because it was, they was talking together, and we gave them the options and said, this is where we like them. What do you think? And on cost, they said this would be the best position. And they did go. It was a long time ago. They did go into detail, but I can't tell you what those details were. But they mentioned that cost, and we tried to keep the cost down as best we could.
So as Councillor Miller said, where do we see this in 50, 70 years' time? An extra 20 grand now to do the right building, surely that's what we've got to do.
So how do you propose that be the right building? What's wrong with that now? Why is it not fit for purpose? You tell me one reason why that's not fit for purpose.
Bob, you were on the group not that many moons ago when
I don't-
we were planning.
No,
We were planning. That's a lovely place to talk. Okay, I was removed all that time.
You was on that when I thought back.
We're
I'm
not, there's no digging. It's their factory.
All right, let's get back to normal.
All right, so we've got a demonstration.
Why isn't that fit for playground? You tell me one
Would
reason.
you like to hear from the bloke?
Yes.
No.
Is she
Yes.
there?
Yes, I do.
Is she there?
I'd like to hear.
Can I have a little word, just 1 second? It's something I'm going to mention at the next meeting because it's not on the agenda. I'm not going to go into it too much, but I think we need consultation with the playgroup.
I agree 100%.
Hold on a sec, because there's been numerous people in charge of the playgroup, because they do change the chairman a lot. And when Tony was on, do you remember, Rob, when Tony was on? Tony, on behalf of the playgroup, put £2,000 towards it, and what they suggested was, we said to get a room with kids' toilets and that, it'd be room there. That's what was suggested. But I think we need to talk to the playground. I haven't got all the information, but I think they're asking for more than what they originally was going to get, which needs to be for another time. At the end of the day, no other group in Clenchwarton has got a specific room in that building.
Well,
playground.
That's exactly kind of like the point. And the preschool, when the preschool put their names forward to represent on this committee, was told no. I'm not allowed to speak. So I stepped back from it.
I disagree with that. No, hold on a minute. Hold on, let me still speak, please. I disagree with that because I found they were a bit harsh at that video call meeting, but I was a bit peeved as well because the playgroup rent this space. It's our village. That's going to be our village hall.
I don't get your point.
The point is, this is for our village. The playgroup could give a week's notice and don't come back anymore. We could be putting a lot of money into that building for the playgroup, for them to just...
I totally understand that, and I totally understand that. But what needs to happen is proper consultation in the requirement. I've got it on very, very good authority that if you build it as it is and you go down this route, or if they build it, they will come approach. The principle will be done.
I disagree.
Tell me why then.
I disagree.
I've said quite clearly.
Where is that report?
I'll tell you what. I'll happily share that information with you.
Offset report.
Ofsted have said we don't first of all survey the plans. They never will, and they never have.
Correct.
So
How can they comment?
I'm going to explain. On the basis of the information that was given to them and the ratios of the children in this building, alongside other factors which we circulated to Richard Moat and never heard a single word from, included the lack of security, the lack of an outdoor play area. There's a whole list of stuff that they went through and said, look at these elements before you go any further, look at these elements, and they listed it for us. And then when we got that information, we circulated it to you. And nothing has happened. It's been very responsive.
There's a parishioner. Just one sec. There's a parishioner. Me and you as parishioners. Forget we've got kids in the play school or anything. Why should I pay for something for a play school that's got nobody from the village?
That's a good point. But no,
I don't believe
it's a
anybody.
good point.
I don't believe anybody that's in the play school, not the kids. Anybody that works in the play group come from Clenchwarton.
Well, you don't think any of the employees?
I don't think so.
Well, how do you know that?
Who's asking?
Are you answering the question in terms
No, sorry, I said I don't think we do, because I used to know everybody, but now I don't.
Well, I don't understand what that's wrong with.
Kevin, can I
The
just...
children that come to the preschool come from the village. Some of them do come from outside the village.
Does every member of the board come from the village? Does every member of the board come from the village?
So Kev, you heard what you said, and you're already saying what you're saying. So let's go back to that. You said that's not fit for purpose. We had, for many years, Tony Mallet, is it?
Yeah, Tony Mallet.
Tony Mallet
Yeah.
was part of this
Committee.
CCP, Technical Council Office. So he was part, and he was very heavily involved with the place. I think he was the chairman of the place at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we sat down for many hours and kept there on the table along there with every single group that used this memorial.
Yeah.
Used to come and put their input.
I was there.
So what happened on them meetings was everybody said that they wanted this and they wanted that and they wanted, and it got really a little bit silly because before you know you got £2 million bill. So we had to narrow it down. This took meeting after meeting after meeting to narrow it down to what we had. So the big emphasis at that time was we need to look after the play school, make sure they had somewhere to go, and some of it will be purposely built for that play school. And that was how it went. They had on their plans a set of toilets for the children, no one else, just for the children. Next door to that, they also had a room that they used during the day, they could use during the day, for painting activities, whatever they want to do. I don't know what they do at play school anymore, but since my kids left. So there was a room purposely put on there for playroom. There was also a barrier, a partition that goes from one end of the room to the other end, that would partition half of that half the hall off from one side, so you had two sides. So you can actually use one side for the playroom, that their stuff, can leave it out all day if they want, that's it, that's going to be there all week. The only advice we had was that they had to get it out on a Monday morning and put it away on Friday night, but that was their space. The other side was for general public. You know, someone wanted to do work in there, or someone wants to have meetings or something like that, that was there for. The total cost for that, for just for the playgroup on their own, and this was about the partition, but this was a guess in the partition came out around about, we think around about 40k. And that's electronic, when you press the button, it turns off, it's soundproof. That, alongside the toilets, and the meeting room, or whatever you want to call it, which would double up as a meeting room in the evening, was for the playgroup to use, had some internet points and stuff, didn't we? We had that, so everyone wants to put that up, so we had all that there. That alone, for that square meterage, is £1,700 per square metre, it's £61,000. That the parish council and the parishioners are prepared, without the partition, which is going to be another 40. So you're talking nearly £100,000 on that price for that building. So with that in mind, the parishioners are going to be asked to pay £100,000 for the playground. And I really do resent the fact that when I hear that they have nothing and they won't be able to move in there, it's not fit for purpose. That is possible, because that is not right. Going on to the play area for the children. It was always agreed, and Tony Matt agreed this at the time, whether it's in the minutes I do not know, but it was always, he wanted the play area put in there. And we agreed that you're having all this, if you want a play area, we're not stopping it. At the time the CCP said this, and I'm sure the parish council will say, no one's stopping you building a purpose thing, as they have out there on the side at the back, where there was an area there for you to go in there and back. But the parish council and the parishioners will not pay for that.
Okay.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. Going back to Ofsted, now I've heard of him over there, and I've heard of you, that they've said that's not fit for purpose. Have you got paperwork for that, or actually they have said that?
The council have had a letter from the preschool saying that, yes.
No, I didn't ask that,
Off the
did
report.
I didn't ask that. I asked, have you got a letter from Ofsted stating that that is not fit for purpose?
So
Because if it isn't, then what we can do as a group, we can go back to the plans and we can scrap what we're going to put in there and save ourselves a huge amount of money. Because if that's not fit for purpose anymore, it's not going to be any more after that, is it?
Excellent. So we need to go to all the users for that consultation and see if they still need to be in that building.
No, that's not, I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about the preschool. So have you got?
So they
have
have
you
all
got that
the
paperwork? I'll ask that lady there. Is that your paperwork lady? Sorry, I don't know your name.
No.
Are they here?
No.
Okay, sorry. So we can go, as me, we can write an email, we can write a letter to whoever the chair is of the playground area, and asking for confirmation from Ofsted that they've said that that's not fit for purpose. And if that is the case, then we can, as a group, we can sit down, we can look at it, and we can say to these people, you know, we can't give you any more. That's what it is. It's not good enough. They will take it away.
So let's not have.
I'm tired of hearing this thing, because it's not true.
Can I just...
We've had a letter from the preschool.
It's
Council have had a letter.
It's not from Ofsted, is it?
The council
I can tell you my car's not fit for purpose, you buy a new one.
You tell me a lot of rubbish at all after all.
Sorry?
That's why we're in the position we're in.
What's that?
You tell me a lot of rubbish, that's why we're in the position we're in.
Can I just add something in relating to what Kevin was saying, and really this as well? It is actually a very good principle of general taxation that we all of us end up paying for things that we don't use. I mean, at the moment, I don't use, none of my family use the schools. Yet a huge amount of my tax and council tax, whatever it is, goes towards the schools. I don't think I have any use for the police, but you can just go on. It's a good principle that we all of us pay for things that we don't need, because at some time we may do, we never know. And in terms of the whole feel of the community, it is good that we all pool our resources to meet the needs of the whole community. So I have no problem with that at all. Can I just come back to what Rob said? I actually agree with Rob. I think the survey of needs, which we've got to have, we're talking now about needs, for heaven's sake. We've got to have as an initial survey of needs from all potential users, existing users of this place, users of that place, if it ever gets built, a survey of needs incorporating the wishes of the people through every door in the parish and so on. But equally, it will need, what Rob is talking about, it's a good point, it will need some kind of vision element as to what may be needed in the future. We all really do want to see a new building for the good of this village, but what sort of new building, how it's going to be funded and all the rest of it, is problematic to us. We must start with a survey of needs, and what would you do with it if we built a new building?
We've done that many years ago, as I just said.
How many visions do you have? Do you have a new vision every year?
That's your
I mean, do you have a new vision every year?
Yeah,
Because we're just going on and on.
No.
We had visions
No. You start.
17 years ago.
No, Ray, you start with what the present people
Well,
are.
we've done that
But
17 years ago.
So basically,
that's before Melbourne.
how far on pack we can sit here trying to go, right, 7 years ago we did this. How have we got that pack? That's what I'm saying.
In my letter, I stated the year, and I can't remember, I'm as bad as Kevin here from memory, but I can't remember what year that was that Rob and Carl had meetings at the school and at the playing field.
I didn't have no meeting.
Well, you had a
Well,
consult, yeah,
okay. You also done a Facebook page as well, Matt.
yeah.
So Mr. Riley, if you wouldn't mind, if you feel like making talks.
Sorry, that's Carl.
What did you just say?
I said you've done a Facebook poll as well.
I did a Facebook poll based on the fact that
Do you
Audrey,
or not? And
you told Audrey to do a Facebook poll.
Sorry?
You told Audrey to do a Facebook poll,
You done that.
but she was fighting to do it, so I said I'll do it for her.
Oh, you've done that.
No, I did it for Audrey.
You
Well,
did
it
it.
wasn't a committee, you know, a group.
Right, this is anyway.
I'm
So,
sorry.
Can we get back to the question?
So what was the result?
Yeah, that was the result.
So I don't answer the context.
What was the result of that poll? What was
The poll turned out to be non-infamous.
Just on a bit of an aside here, why is the parish council, ultimately who's going to be responsible for this building?
My daughter did one,
Why
the same time as you did.
Sorry, Audrey.
Sorry, now why is the parish council spending council public funds on a company that's a private entity like the preschool? Well, I don't understand this, why the public should pay for a commercial business.
Oh. Why is the
Well, you could say that about all the users of the whole.
money for a football club?
They're not though, are they?
yeah,
Well, that's good.
How do you do that?
we're heavily subsidising.
How do you do that?
Glass cutting, electric, water. It works out for the football club usage on a pavilion. You pay 1.9
interested in that.
an hour.
I'm interested
Of
in
course
that.
you're not interested, because you're
Hey, wait for God's sake, football
at
club.
1.9 pence an hour.
How much?
1.9 pence an hour.
Can we get back to the
Doesn't
question?
Doesn't cover the cost.
So the-
generally included in the
Doesn't
rate.
cover
The preschool pay rent.
Yeah, but they're business.
In fact, the preschool, but it's very quite clear, the preschool is the main hirer of the building.
Okay, so if
And
I,
football club
if I
is the
start
main
my business.
But I'm not disputing that. I'm not disputing that. It was made, a comment was made, why is the parish council funding?
Let's get back to
The council upon the council. Why?
Susan has something to say.
Listen,
Can
can
you
I
hear us?
just go through the questions? I'm guessing there's no more questions.
Yeah, well, I've just.
Lot was halfway through this question.
Yeah, I've lost a little bit.
Let me just go through all the questions. Let me go through all the questions so we know where we are.
Yeah, I haven't had my say yet, so when you finish.
We'll do that then. Yeah.
Can I do one now?
Well, if Rob finishes.
Oh, I'm not finished, Rob.
No, I think I'm going to
Let me go over it again, right? Do you want a village hall? Do you want to grow in? Do you want it to grow in the village? Do you want to contribute money costs and money costs? That's what I put down.
Well, I don't think you should put that last paragraph in there.
Actually, they're
No,
dictates.
this
Because that's just bringing the false
Yeah,
information.
I understand that, but this is everybody's view, and then we're going to vote on which question to ask. We've got,
Yeah.
at the moment, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we've got 8 different questions. I'll go through them all again, and then we have a vote on what we think.
As a point of fact, they are Dick Moat's questions from the report of January 2020, which I
Well, if Rob said them, that's fine.
Yeah.
So it's no problem.
Okay, I think I've said everything else.
Are they all them, Rob, yeah?
Yeah.
For those?
I think so. I think we've got a great location, what's its use,
Actually.
info about proposed users.
So,
That's already been suggested.
yeah, okay. So there's only, is it just you left
No,
out?
I want to say something
Oh.
else. What about, there's new buildings going on in the village. The
Yeah.
village is expanding.
Yeah,
So this hall is never going to be big enough for an expanding village.
that's why the new hall would be bigger.
Yes.
That's not massively bigger.
But no, why we should have a new one, is what I'm saying, is because of the expanding village.
Is
So
that,
we need.
That's not a question, that's
is that sort of like round about the question, say, like...
Yes, but I think that we do.
Is Cal the last one to ask questions? Is that the...
Yes.
So if you, Stephen, have you done yours? Yeah. So Cal, if you do yours, then I believe that's everybody.
On mine is just do you want it or do you not? But I'm a bit concerned with Alan is saying that, it was a referendum for this election thing.
That was Alistair Webb's.
You said it as well in your
Yeah, it didn't seem to be, but he first said it.
So can I talk? Thank you. So, going on the back of that, I think first of all, I think the CCP should draft a letter and send to all the parishioners by post or delivery by, however we want to get to it. Not Facebook, nothing, but a hard copy, an A4 of the actual facts of what we are actually proposing to build and the cost. Now the cost is going to be, it could be less, it could be a little bit more, but it ain't £1 million.
Are you resurrecting the plan?
So, I didn't interrupt you, don't interrupt me. Thank you.
Oh,
So, I think the letter should be drafted up and sent to every parishioner in this village of the facts. And the facts are a costing, what we've had of Biggs and Waddison, a costing of what that is. Now, there's 3 costings to that. So you can go to the high level, which is over 2,000 per square metre. You can go to the middle one, which is one we went for, which is roughly 17 miles on up, I like that. And then you can go to the smaller one, which is £1,300 per square metre, roughly. Don't quote me on that, is it, but that's roughly what it is. So I think we need to go out there and give them the facts. Because I read all over Facebook and I read all this false information going out that why should the parish council pay for the football club? Why should they pay for this change room? What? It's going to cost £1 million. There's no room in there for the parish, for the place room. And you know what? It frustrated me so much because I couldn't say anything because I'm not going to sit there and tell people lies like a lot of it was. And you know it was, and a lot of other people know it was. So all these lies went out to the parishioners and they believed it.
I said
And I think that we need to send a letter out with the facts. And the facts are, it's not going to cost £1 million. The facts are, it's not going to cost you £60 a month on your council rate. The facts are, it's not going to cost you one single penny for the change rooms on there. The facts are, there is plenty of money there for the playroom. And the other facts are, there's plenty of room in there for the sports that Rob Lucas will introduce to the village.
I assume that's all on that memory stick you're going to circulate those facts, is it, Mr. Turner?
Well, they're all fact, everybody knows that.
No.
No, we don't.
What don't we know then?
So
What you say,
So that makes those facts.
where is it in paper that it's going to cost you £60 a month?
Can we guarantee that?
What, £60 a month?
Can we guarantee that?
Well, you can guarantee that. Yeah, because two within their right mind go to any parishioner and ask for £60 a month.
I reckon.
Well, so
Who would do that?
Who
would do that?
The comment in Richard West's report, the comment in Richard West's report was to say pay £50 or so
A year.
A year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a month.
Well, it's 10 months.
No, but someone did.
Yeah, okay, well, it wasn't me. The point
It's
here,
anonymous over there.
to resign. You have called several of us liars.
Yes, I'm very upset about that because, you know, I've spent my life
I
trying.
will speak on what I've said. So I've read all these comments and I've read all the text. So I think we should go down that road, and that's what I'm proposing. You can vote for it and do what you like. But I'm proposing that we draft a letter to the parishioners stating the facts as we know them.
That
Not
will
as we think,
Chairman.
not as we want them to know.
No, that's all.
What
We all
the
agree
facts
and
are.
correct, yeah?
Chairman,
Facts
please, can I say something? You have, Steve is quite right, you have accused people of lying. I have spent my entire professional career trying to be truthful. I hope the work I've done in 40 years in parishes has been of that quality and character. And I do take it very badly, but I won't take it too personally. You're interrupting me.
Did I call you a liar?
Yes.
No, I did not.
You just
Did you, okay, ask me one
because
question.
you're referring to
Ask me one question, and I only want the answer, yes or no.
Look.
Did you say that village hall would cost $1 million plus? Did you say that? Did you put that in your manifesto?
Absolutely,
Thank you. That is a
the-
lie. That is a lie.
The last time,
No, not at all.
Where did you get the £1 million from?
Not at all. Well,
Where
in
did you
fact,
get it from?
I did get it
Where
from
from?
somebody who used to sit round this table, but I won't bother with that one.
Who?
The issue is...
Did you go to the parish council?
Will you
CCP,
just
that list?
let me say something?
That's a lie.
You are an impossible person to deal with.
No. I'm just
That's why the government has gone nowhere.
Now,
You
And
can't
that's
say
just not the parish council.
quite seriously,
And the parish council is going nowhere. I think it's obvious to the public when these videos go out who is the troublemakers. It's so obvious.
This is the thing is, Alan.
So let's just stop all that there. So that's what I propose. So we can get to the next round.
look, the last... Can I just nail this £1 million thing? The last time I saw figures for this sort of building that you were talking about, we were talking of between £700,000 and £800,000, I think. Well, if you add on 2 or 3 years with the exponential rise in building costs, I think I said in that leaflet, you're heading towards £1 million. Because you are, quite simply. You are, by the time you fit it in.
You only put that in there for one thing, Alan,
What?
because you wanted to get on to the parish council.
Oh, for heaven's sake, that's the last thing I really wanted. I was...
Well, I think that was
do you
quite
know,
clear.
do you know when
It come from a few different people.
Do you know when I stood? Do you know when I stood?
I
The
think
very
you were-
morning. Ray, you've got me completely wrong. My papers, I didn't put them in.
Well, I mean-
My papers went in the very morning of the cut-off point, when it cuts off at 12 noon. I didn't want to stand.
But
I tried to persuade other people to stand.
I'm not saying that, Alan, to a point.
Well, you have just
Well,
said.
all right, I did say it. Yes, I'll agree to that.
You ought to know me better than that, Ray. We've worked
Well,
together.
absolutely right. But putting nearly £1 million, close on £1 million, that was put in there to frighten people of the village.
No, not at all. It's
I had several
it's about where we get
several
now.
people come to me, really, £1 million.
Right,
The last I heard, it was going to be about 600,000.
Well, the original bill was 635,000. When we initially started about 5 or 6 years ago,
Yeah.
the revised one was that was 730,000.
There we are. That's the sort of figure.
It's not a million, is it?
Well, you add on 2 or 3
Okay,
years.
so
I've
let's get back to the
Listen, can I just have one second?
forgotten what I was going to say.
I know we have different opinions, yeah, but it's quarter to 9.
Okay,
10 to
I'll do
9.
that.
Look, there's an agenda item, please, and I forgot questions, but I
Right,
just
so
want
the
to
agenda
get this
item
question.
is that you've got some...
This question, right, is what we're putting to the village. All we have to do is to make a choice, which one it is. We've all had this say right or wrong, but
Which question?
all the questions are, we're going to put them to the vote and see whose question we think is more suitable.
Well, we have a proposal from Mr. Tordoff, which is really to put the previous plan to the village. Do you want this, yes or no? In other words, Carl, you're actually leapfrogging backwards,
that's not
right over
Alan, that's not
the
agenda
whole
item.
business of what Nick Moat was trying to do for us.
If we want to talk about that, that's got to be at the next meeting. We're kind of going off on track here.
Well, we had a proposal before.
No, we've got questions here from everybody, yourself included.
Can we go through the questions then? And
That's what I want to do. I just want to go to a vote. We've got 2 more questions after that.
That's why I put a proposal forward that you...
Okay, can I
you
answer
point
the
that
questions,
out.
please?
and you send it to us, we'll vote on it, or say, yeah, we'd like this question.
The vote's here now, Dave. The vote's here now. I'm going to ask him, and then we vote which one we think's best.
I think everybody's got confused, Kevin.
Yes.
I think it's far too.
Listen, I'll just
Kevin, I absolutely agree with David. You've got a lot of questions, you've got a lot of duplicate questions. The best thing would be to do would be to take those duplicates out, circulate them, and when come back to the next meeting.
And anybody who sent them to Dick, guys, we can get them off of Dick.
I think Rob's doing the big ones.
They weren't Dick's latest ones, they were from the report.
No, that was just literally from his
So Dick hasn't had his yet. Okay. So can I just...
Before they go out though, this is what I'm trying to say, before that questionnaire goes out to the village, whichever it is, however we agree to, before that goes out, then I think a letter should be gone out for the facts.
But we should that...
Probably push it.
Yeah, but we should make that... We should make that...
Listen to lies, or listen to misinformation.
But we should make that an agenda item. That's got to be an agenda item.
Okay.
We've got an agenda here.
Thank you.
We can call the next meeting, yeah, and if we all agree to send a letter out, then we will. But I've got some questions here that I need everybody to... So are we saying you want me to write these
Well, there's a
down?
proposal. There's been a proposal.
I'm just trying to understand the proposal.
To send out those
So you want to send them to everybody's email address? I haven't got everybody's email address, so I'll have to just get them off you. And then I'll put all these questions to you. And if you think it's wrong before I finalise it, just say, because it'll be in Yorkshire, not English. So, yeah.
But when you answer it, we don't want like War and Peace on it.
No, just one.
Yes,
Kevin, the clerk has got all the emails, hasn't she?
Actually,
Jenny,
Are you saying we vote by email, or are you saying bring it back?
No, it's
We
Dave, I don't think you should be able to do that. It's an important... I don't
If you're going to do that, you have to do it now.
Let's put it as a next agenda at the next meeting, and that way we can have one set of questions, work through them, all in a minute.
The vote could be the first question on the next agenda, and then whatever else you want to add after that. So
I'd say so.
Is everybody happy with that? Yeah? Is that you now?
When is the next meeting?
We don't know yet. Let's get to the next one first. Right, so I'll leave that then. Yeah, so that's okay. So that's that one. I think Steve had his hand up.
I just wanted to make an observation and ask a question, because what Robert said about building for the future and building for people sort of decades down the line, my question, and it sort of reinforced with what Mr. Tordoff said as well, is how do you insulate the village if the facility doesn't financially wipe its nose in the future? Say I don't know, there's another pandemic and the place is generating bills, but it's not being paid. How do you insulate the parishioners for not being hit through the precept? And the other thing is, with Mr. Tordoff saying about facts going out to people, the only thing that the parishioners want to know is what is it actually going to cost, and who's going to pay for it. Those two things. That's all. Who's going to pay for it? Because I think that's from all the to and fro that we've done for ages now. That's been a primary concern, because all these figures are bandied around and no one understands or knows which one is right and which one isn't. If you've got funding streams available that have signed up, then the villagers need to know. But ultimately, they just, like Des around the corner from me says, I want to know how much I've got to put my hand in my pocket for. That was that. And the question was, at the last CCP, Dick Moat said that he was going to talk to the Borough Council about having this referendum done properly, and he was going to get costs. And that was...
Well, Dick came to me really late on and told me he couldn't make it. So, I mean, hopefully he'll be at next meeting and then he can tell you himself. I think he'll be able to do that. Because don't forget, we're going to do the question next week, so we don't need to know that until next meeting. after.
I think you'd all boiled it down last time that the only way of getting this question out effectively was to use the borough council, because then the process was beyond reproach, and no one could say, you know, oh, so and so's involved in this, and you know.
I think from what I remember, the deal was a bit too expensive to do it that way, wasn't it?
I don't know.
I think
Dick's the man to ask, isn't he? If he's asked the borough council, then he's the man to ask. And he's not here, so we're just surmising that one.
Okay, and final one, the play school in the new build, what space is preschool actually supposed to use?
They've got their toilets, they've got their room where they can do their painting and stuff, there's another room beside that, and then they have half the village hall.
Right, so they can use the main space as well?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
If it's not booked by somebody else.
It's always been the case.
No,
okay, because the way
No, that's not what was agreed. What was agreed is exactly what Mr. Todd said, which was, it's the reason why it's not a movable wall is so that it can be taken down, or the idea would be taken down, the article is taken down on a Friday. However, previously, what it was stated was, any time it can be taken down. So it's no different than it is now, basically. It's not just weekends, it's any time. So as an example, if someone came along and wanted to have a midweek wedding or something, and they said, yeah, I want to use the hall, please, the priest will still have to turn down.
So the idea was as well, is that with this petition hall, if no one had booked that hall from Monday to Friday, or Monday to Wednesday, or whatever, then the place would have a hall.
But you just said the same thing, but in reverse.
Yeah, that's the idea.
It has to be
finished.
They have to be torn down. It has to be taken down.
It can be. It doesn't. It's slides. It's on.
No.
It's on a note.
If the hall, if someone comes along and says they want to book the entire space, then the police will have to tear down.
No, they can only book half the space, right?
No. That's definitely not what was said. Definitely not what was said.
That's something we need to update in the business plan.
Again, exactly, because what was said before, the information changes to suit the wind.
No, it's
right?
to suit you.
The hall was designed and put in there so that if someone came in and said, I want to hire the hall, but I want the entire space, preschool will be asked to tear down so they can move the wall and that person can hire space. If, according to the business plan, you wanted to do weddings or have a wedding reception there, no one's going to be wanting screaming kids next door to their having their happy nuptials. No one's going to be wanting that going on. So it was stated that the preschool, if whoever said came along, if the borough council came along, so they wanted to do a training event at the hall, or what recently happened here with the pandemic, the government approached Sheila and said, we want to do COVID. If that happened, you'd have to tear down the preschool. That's the reason why that's the way it is.
So that law was introduced. So then, if the place school, it stopped the place school having to stop working, to use their space. The other space was there for if someone wanted to come do aerobics, or there's a knitting club, or tea and coffee, or whatever else. And for your information, the reason this partition wall, motorised partition wall, costs so much money because it was soundproof. And that's the reason we went for that, because it's soundproof. So you could have two things going on each side. What I'm saying is, if there's nothing booked all week, or Monday to Wednesday, there's no reason why the place can have the whole space. There's no reason at all.
They can't operate.
Sorry?
They can't operate like that.
Why can't they?
Because at the moment they are seen as a temporary setup.
Excuse me, the time is getting...
I didn't mean to ask the question to cause an argument of conflict. It was just a question because the play school room on the plan is 5 metres by 5 metres approximately, which is like that space that space there, which compared to what they've got already seems like a retrograde step for a facility where we're trying to. So that was the question in my head. That was just in my head.
Just
so,
trust me.
Thank you.
Trust me. Originally, what it was is this extra room was so they could put some stuff in. They could have a whole hall, and this partition. You wouldn't put a partition in for no reason at all. I think originally Sheila was on Sheila asked about the Women's Institute, would like to go in the daytime because they don't like to come out at night, and that's why we came up with the partition. You remember?
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Can we arrange
Yeah,
another
so,
meeting?
right, next meeting.
Well,
Right, you do agenda items for future meetings.
there's just one other thing on there. Sorry, I don't know if you spotted it, Carl. Number 7 first.
Sorry?
Nothing wrong with the second.
No.
Number 7. I've got the wrong sheet.
There is no 7. There's only 5.
Right, what you've got on here, to resolve on whether the fund day should be a subcommittee of the CCP. Does nobody have that?
That's the minutes of the last meeting, isn't it?
That's the minute.
What's the title?
It's not on the agenda, so. Never mind.
Now, carry on, there's no number 7. Sorry about that, I've been looking at the wrong thing all day.
Anybody, for the next meeting, anybody got anything they want to put on the agenda?
Yeah, agenda items then. So, Carl, if you wouldn't mind circulating the information on the memory stick to
Is that agenda item?
I'm about to come on to it. If you wouldn't mind circulating that information, there's obviously going to be questions. So, agenda item I would like would be questions on information set down from Mr. Torrell's memory stick. We need to get, if we do agree and go forward, we all need the base level of knowledge. At the moment, we spent most of tonight arguing because we haven't got that. Yeah? Fair?
Yes.
Right.
You have to. That's not.
Here we go again, Mr. Torrell. Could you show some respect, please? Thank you.
Steve, you know,
Right. Agenda item 1 then is questions on information sent down from Mr. Torrell's memory stick.
Yeah.
Right. The second one is how to update the business case. We need to get that information all written down in one key document.
Business case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like call it business plan if you like. Plan.
Yeah.
Okay. We need to consider the future use and long-term use of the plan of the home.
I'll add that in with that, should I?
Do it as a separate one if you don't mind.
Consider future use.
Yeah. So how to do consultations with the users and keep it that and we identify the users as well. So identify users.
Is that in with the same?
No.
No. So
I think what we all agenda is what you want.
It's,
Or is it again? We ask you also.
if you want it, in the next meeting you want to split it over several meetings.
Oh,
Steve, these are future agenda items.
Conscious that you put half a dozen on there.
identify, I missed identify
So identify the users,
users.
and then how to consult with those users. The plans need to work for everybody.
Okay.
Okay, next one is the information pack contents. We talked tonight about the questions, we've identified the fact we need an information pack, but we haven't said what the contents are going to be, so we need to work that out, yeah?
Information pack is going on. What's the information pack for? Who for?
For all the Christians, so they know what they're voting.
Information pack or a leaflet or
Whatever you want to call it, put it as agenda item. We'll work it out on that agenda. And then the last one, obviously it doesn't have to be for the next agenda, but how are we going to do this village vote? So are we going to do it the same as you would do with a normal vote where everybody comes in with a voting slip, etc.? So we need to work out how we're going to do this.
how do you also?
How the village is going to vote.
I think we did say one of the first questions would be, I'm guessing other notes, would be to ask the right question, so we'll pick a question. So after that, then that needs to be after that.
Yeah.
Let's debate it another day, please.
All right.
Thank you.
Is anybody else? This is AC.
Yeah, thanks.
Which way are you going around, Carl?
Do we have a date, do you think?
Have you got anything for the agenda? No?
Could we have a punch break next time?
Trillian? Rob?
No.
Sophie?
No, I would love you.
Okay. Well, email Carl. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do
Send it
it.
to me.
Just the date for next meeting.
Right.
Does it have to be a Friday night?
That's something you wanted to mention, wasn't it?
I mean, does it really?
We don't normally do parish business on a Friday night, do we?
We used to always have these meetings on a Friday night. We did used to always have these meetings, I believe, on a Friday night, because it benefited a lot of people. But, I mean, it's just what everybody else wants to do, to be honest, which is best for them. It doesn't matter to me, don't know, anybody else?
Yeah,
Well, the
I
next
thought
parish
it was
council is the 2nd of September, isn't it? I really hope we don't do 2 nights and running.
No, I'm proposing that we get another next meeting on the 16th of July, please.
What?
Yes.
What, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
You can normally do a month.
The place is no, that's parish council, but
That's
we're
parish
trying to
council.
progress
We
still.
need to get this moving on. So
The planning expired.
I'm away for a couple of weeks, so I want to get some stuff sorted out, get this all done and dusted on the 16th.
The planning's expired, so there is no rush to try and get everything in before planning. So you need to make sure you get this right for the village, for the
Next
future.
meeting, everybody all right with that?
Is
16th?
that right?
No, no,
Yes, I'm fine with
What
that.
was it, Carl?
16th of July. Please, thank
2
you.
weeks time.
So have we got options?
Monday the 16th.
Friday.
For the 60th.
Friday the 16th. Thank you.
Friday the 16th.
7:30 is best for me.
So we're going for Friday again, are we? We're just-
Because that suits Mr. Torrey.
No, I can't always make it in the week. It's not the cold order. As you know, I work Monday to Friday. Sometimes I work away. And for me to make
Same as
a
that, so it's just easy for me for Friday.
and for me to make a parish council meeting on a Thursday, I've had to drop my working week down to a 4-day week. So Friday is actually.
So can we just have a vote on it and then we're doing it right? It doesn't matter to me really, but I'm happy whatever.
Friday,
Well, we voted on
Friday,
So
propose Friday the 16th.
Have we got another, have we got another date first?
I propose the 30th,
So we've
because
got
that gives
two
us time to consider the questions.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. If it's got to be a Friday, let it be a Friday. But, you know, 2 weeks' time.
I mean, we haven't had one for 3
I'm
months.
not available on the 3rd, so it's the 16th.
Sorry? Sorry, are you dictating it to
I
16th?
said I'm not available on the Friday, the 16th is best for me.
Whatever
That's it.
we do, if people can't make it, they can't make it.
All right.
So now we need to
I
the back.
propose that we do the 16th. Can we have hands up for the 16th, please?
I'm happy with that. I'm happy with 16.
Thank you.
I'm happy.
And the 30th? Thank you. 16th is, thank you very much.
Okay.
Bulldozers on. Carl, I cannot carry on.
I didn't, I
cannot carry on.
the vote then.
Thank you. Thank you everybody for coming. I hope the next one will be a bit more.
Your chair, it comes from yourself.